Hey, good morning. Good morning. Hey, everybody. Let's see here. We're kind of doing an early stream today. Well, I mean, all week we've been on early morning, but for the weekend, probably early. Um, what's up? This is the one I wanted to do last night. Nancy Grace came out with the podcast, and I figured we could listen to it, and we could also watch some videos from News Nation. The only unfortunate thing with the Nancy Grace episode, I don't think they touched on the new findings. Hey, chill out, right? Um, that's the only unfortunate thing because I really want to know her thoughts on the substances. Also, on Monday, we're coming back Monday, so I set the stream up for 8:45 a.m. Let me double check that I set it up right because I actually set the time wrong for this stream. Sorry about that. I wanted to start it at least like at 12 to give people some time. But on Monday, where's it at? I set it up right. It should be somewhere. Here we go. I'm going to put the link in the description in case you guys don't see it on the channel or something. Here, let me show you. It's right here. I set it up for Monday. I'm going to drop it in the chat, but I'm going to put it in the description of this video. So at any time you can go and like set a reminder. And anyway, at the end of this stream, I'm going to redirect the people to if it works. It's going to be an interesting day. I don't know how long the verdict's going to take. There's a lot of people with a lot of different opinions on the Jennifer Crumbley, whether she should be guilty or innocent. A lot of hot conversations going on. A lot of people worried. Are they going to be the next ones that get locked up or charged for their kids? And I have really a lot of different thoughts on that. We'll definitely save that for Monday. But just remember, 8:45 a.m. Monday. I even thought we could do calls. I'm gathering some videos. BL has sent me some stuff, and I was looking up some stuff as well. If you have anything interesting you want to send me with regards to the Crumbley story, or just email me at ickandmel@gmail.com and like put in the subject line, trial or Jennifer Crumbley or something like that, so I know. PG, what's up? And last night was busy, man. Last night with the chases. Wow. Lots of chases. So, all right, let's start off with there's a couple things we could do. I guess that maybe we'll start off with I can't believe Amy stopped there at 69 gifts. Good morning, man. How you guys doing? I went and got a little bit of sun this morning. I did a little jog, and so here we are. Let's see. Oh, let me fix the audio.
Plus, Zen is the only nicotine.
Query. How do you sleep for 2+ days and not notice the dead bodies in the backyard?
Well, a lot of us been talking about it's probably the substances. Jordan was probably on, maybe he had partaken in some of it. Make sure you subscribe to Ick and Mel CC because I am posting extra videos there, guys. And I plan to post something there later with regards to this story. I was even possibly thinking two things. I don't know. But yeah, stay tuned on the second channel. Make sure you subscribe, turn on notifications. My only thing I don't understand, listen, my theory behind this, and on Monday with the Jennifer Crumbley, I'm going to give my guess as to what it's going to be or what I think it should be after I hear the jury instructions. But my theory with this is I saw some doctors saying that he thought they just froze in the backyard. I think that the substances, the fentanyl, got to them first. I don't know why they were out there in the backyard. I don't know if they were like overheating. I don't know if they were like whatever. I don't know if they were like, oh, let's go take a smoke break. I don't know, because Jordan's attorney's story had been inconsistent. And Jordan had at one point claimed that, like, through the attorney apparently, that he had seen him leave the front and that maybe they just came back. I think when I heard that it was like 3 times the lethal level, to me, it's the fentanyl. That stuff is just so strong. I don't think that they passed out and then froze. I think they died because of the substance and then maybe froze. I don't think that they were alive and then froze because they were passed out, you know. So I don't know. Hopefully they can actually tell. Oh my God, Jen, the carbon monoxide. Yeah, I'm so over that. Hey, Elsa, how you doing? I'm so over that. Kelly, thank you. This is the first one I followed with you. Oh, the first one I followed with you was Chuck and Lisa. That one lives rent free in my head still. His song randomly plays in my head all the time. I don't know. So that would be my guess.
Hey, forget the backyard. Your back porch, which is open. It's not like it's enclosed. It's right there. How do you miss 3 dead bodies? And then if you look out the front, you see the victims' cars still parked in front of your house. I think 2 plus 2 still equals 4. If all the cars are there, then they haven't left. If they haven't left, where are they? Now we are learning. Of course, I'm talking about the 3 Kansas Chiefs fans, Kansas City Chiefs fans.
And I keep finding great stuff from Monday for us to watch. I just found something else. I'm not going to play it now, though. I'm going to save it for us on Monday, but I keep finding really good things.
Who go for a watch party at their friend's house,
New dog.
And they're all found dead on the back porch and in the backyard. Now, we keep hearing this is not a homicide investigation, given. But who would have the story, make up the story that they slept for 2+ days, didn't answer phone calls, text messages, social messages? How can you go for 2 days and not look out the window, not walk downstairs, nothing? I find that impossible. So if that is not true, then is the so-called friend lying? And if the friend is lying, why is he lying? What is a reason to lie when your 3 best friends are dead in the backyard? Joining me today is a very special guest. With me, Jonathan Price. This is Ricky Johnson's brother.
Oh, so that's good. See, I haven't listened to this. I like to try to react to it authentically, in the moment. So that's good. The brother joined. Okay, so we're in for a little treat. I can actually add a caption to the thumbnail, but I waited to see. So I'm going to do that while we listen.
And right off the top, let me tell you, these families are in so much pain. Instead of planning the next big thing in their lives, like a wedding or some big event, a promotion, they're trying to figure out how to pay funeral expenses. There is a GoFundMe. You can find it online for Ricky Johnson. GoFundMe.com/F/bags Ricky Johnson. But I got to get into the facts. We now know the friend has checked himself into rehab. Why? We know that the police are trying desperately.
Yeah, Jordan's in rehab. You know, the whole substance thing came out after, which just looks really bad. And of course, people can go to rehab for alcohol, but this whole time with the 3 guys, I'm like, this is not just alcohol. For them to just simultaneously all die at the same time, I guess they all had the same alcohol tolerance. That wouldn't make any sense. So I was like, they had to be some type of substance in their whatever they did, because I heard multiple theories. Maybe they smoked something that was laced with it because they had THC, or maybe they just happened to smoke THC on top of doing this other stuff separately. And one of the things that one of my friends said, and I thought it was such a good plausible theory, is that maybe they were railing Coca-Cola, which actually I have a story to share on the second channel too, a similar story. We're gonna do that later, short story. Maybe they were railing Coca-Cola and mistakenly then went back to rail and railed the wrong stuff straight fent. Or maybe, because sometimes people talk about, sometimes Coke is cut with fent. Maybe it was that. Maybe it was a mix. I don't know why these people would be cutting it with that. but I guess maybe to have less coke and a little bit mix some fent in there, so to keep the cost cheap, because fent is so powerful, you only need a small amount. You buy that fent in bulk and you mix it with coke, but you could probably have less Coca-Cola and more additives and then throw fent in there, you know?
To unlock the cell phones of the three victims. They better go unlock the cell phone of the friend. But all that said, I want to hear Jonathan Price's story from the beginning to the end right now. I'm Nancy Grace. This is Crime Stories. Thank you for being with us here at Crime Stories and on Sirius XM 111. First of all, for those of you that are not familiar with the story, who is that? Are you living under a rock in a cave on the other side of the world? For those people, listen to this.
Harrington's girlfriend of 17 years flat out says David was murdered. Those three guys were murdered. The Kansas City police said from the very beginning the deaths are not being investigated as a homicide, but Lori Cruz says her boyfriend of 17 years did not use drugs and that he was murdered.
Since early in the investigation, police have said the case is not being investigated as foul play, but some of the loved ones of the deceased believe Willis played a role in their deaths. John Harrington, father of David Harrington, whose body was found on the open porch, said that he and David's mother both are convinced that Jordan Willis played a part in the deaths.
You know, the families are not buying what the police are selling. Why is that? You know what I found in all of my homicide investigations and prosecutions? Typically, the victims' families of all people want the truth. So why are they refusing to believe what cops are saying? You know, when you know somebody so well, like Jackie sitting right there, I can tell you right now, Jackie is not running outside to do a line of coke. No drugs. I know that. I would stake my life on it. This family says he did not use drugs. So why is he dead in the backyard? And why don't we have the toxicology reports? And why don't we have a COD cause of death on these guys? Okay, again, for those of you that don't know what happened, I'm going to bring you up to speed really quickly. Listen to Nicole Parton, Crime Online.
On January 8, friends and family are concerned.
And I just want to stop. Oh, by the way, I put the link to Nancy Grace's podcast in the description. If you want to listen to it uninterrupted, you can. I have to give some commentary a little bit here and there. But somebody had said, where's this comment at? Didn't he have work on Monday? I don't know. That's a great question. But he worked from home. But yeah, he was supposedly passed out most of the time. So yeah, did he go to work Monday or Tuesday? Because they found the bodies Tuesday night. Like within this time period, did he even go to work?
They were headed to Jordan Willis' house to watch the game. But now none of the guys, including Jordan Willis, are replying to messages on social media or by phone.
On Tuesday, January 9th, 9:51 p.m., Clayton McKinney's fiance shows up at the house. She sees the cars in the driveway, and since nobody is answering the phone or replying to messages, she breaks into the home and screams Willis's name. She walks through the house, then she looks on the back porch and sees a body.
Screaming, McKinney's fiance calls police. Officers arrive to find Willis in his underwear with an empty glass of wine in hand. The other two bodies were then found in the backyard. Jordan Willis tells police he has no idea what happened.
No idea what happened. Wine glass in hand. First, to Jonathan Price. This is Ricky Johnson's brother. Jonathan, thank you for being with us.
All right.
Thank you for having me, Nancy.
Jonathan, first of all, we have been praying for you, your brother, your family, and the other victims since we first heard about this. It's hard for me to believe they froze to death, given what I know about the temperatures during those 2 days. But I'll get to that later. I want to hear from the beginning how this debacle, this odyssey, started for you.
Well, I was working the Wednesday after, and my brother called me and gave me the news. You know, and the information he shared with me is not very far off from what I have now, 3.5 weeks later, which is very sad. So, I mean, just like you said there, you know, ever since then we've been trying to find answers as much as we can.
Well, I'm curious. What did your brother say to you?
Well, he told me that I have some bad news to share, and I don't want it to be like this because we don't live very close. So it's not like he could just come down and tell me, which made it even more difficult. And he told me that Ricky passed away, and they're not sure why. They just found his body. So to both of us, nothing made sense right off the bat. And 3.5 weeks later, we're still in the same boat, Nancy. So I can't answer. Yeah.
Jonathan, at the very beginning, what were you told about what happened?
Well, from the very beginning, all the reports and everything, which is the only people we've actually heard from is media. Especially in the first week, 2 weeks, we never heard anything from the police, but that they froze to death. And that's why we've been so outspoken from the very beginning, is because that is not a cause of death I would ever accept. My brother is a smart man. He ran a large portion of his father's construction company. He was at work all the time. That doesn't make any sense. And he had 3 daughters that he looked forward to seeing as much as he could. So how would he put himself in a situation to freeze to death? Didn't make any sense.
He has 3 daughters?
Yes.
What are their ages?
14, 9, and 4.
Okay, right there. I've just got to tell you, I've got to go to the shrink on this. We've got an all-star panel to make sense of what we're hearing right now. But to Dr. John Della Torre, psychologist, mediator, who specializes in forensic psychology at resolutionfcs.com. Dr. Della Torre, thank you for being with us. I was and always will be a daddy's girl. Is that right or wrong? I don't know. But that was my soulmate. Yes, don't tell my husband. That was my soulmate, my dad, Mac. Uh-huh. We laughed at the same things. We danced together. He went on our vacations with us, along with my mom. Everything.
Very interesting. I don't know. So 5 Minutes Fast said, Mel, look up how long drugs can be detected in the hair and then compare how long Jordan stays in rehab. Very interesting. It says the window of detection also varies based on the amount of hair tested. Although longer samples of hair can be tested for exposure over a longer period of time, a standard sample of hair from the scalp is 1.5 inches and provides information about approximately 90 days of past drug exposure. That's interesting. We can use 12 centimeters of hair sample to profile approximately 12 months of drug use. So it depends, I guess, how much hair. How far back does hair drug testing go? Is that there is no limit. We can test approximately 1 month of drug use for every centimeter of hair. So it depends how much hair. That's really interesting. The timing of the rehab thing is interesting too. I don't know. Did it really just feel bad? Maybe. I don't know. Maybe you're losing your friends. Maybe you're like, I need to get my life together. And I don't know if you can have tolerance for. I really don't know. That's a really good question. Somebody said, could you even have built up tolerance to survive 3 times the lethal dose of Fent? And I wouldn't honestly know the answer to that. I know Fent is really, really strong, so I couldn't conceive it. But I saw somebody the other day talk about that they knew somebody that was popping them things like nothing. Built up a tolerance. Some Murdoch tolerance.
Put me through law school. I cannot imagine growing up without my dad. And now you've got these 3 little girls, one 4 years old, who's never going to know her dad. I don't know. Is that better or worse? One's 13. She knows her dad. And the pain of his loss must be overwhelming, and it's going to affect them in ways.
I feel really bad about that. Yeah, just like, Maddie's a daddy's girl too. Her mother tells me the same thing. Like, oh, that's she's a daddy's girl. And I know many women in my life that have grown up. Even my mother have grown up without fathers and stuff, and that really, really sucks. I feel bad for those kids. Plenty of people I know, well, kind of including myself, but also women too. Has an effect. they need their moms, but it's good to have a father too, you know?
We can't even figure out yet.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because here's the example that they have for the loss of their father comes from this sort of confused and sort of, this nebulous way in which he died. They have no answers. It's one thing to have an answer and to suffer a loss because you can start working through because you have the answer. You know what exactly it was that happened. But if you don't know the truth and if you think other people are keeping the truth from you, that can impact you just as much as the loss did. They're already going to be going through grieving, right? They're already going to be suffering in their own ways. And the hope is that they have family connections that can help them work through those problems by remembering the father that they had. But the problem is that they don't have an answer. They don't have an ending. And that's going to be really problematic as they continue to move forward through their grieving process.
Belongs to you. Plus, all LifeLock plans are... But I'm a bit of a...
I mean, yeah, it's the reality of these substances, right? I just feel like, man, on another stream the other day, kind of forgot who said it. It's just like not the same as it was back in the day when people were doing drugs. Of course, people always have passed away and all that kind of stuff too, but I feel like now more than ever, everything's just adulterated, filtered, fake stuff, mixed stuff, cut it up, use whatever to make the most profit possible. And I wonder what the supplier, whoever supplied that stuff, what are they doing now, right? See, they got to be watching the news, seeing all this stuff, freaking out. The LSD story that I shared on the members area, which is, if you're a new member, you should definitely check it out. It's crazy. It's about 30 minutes long. But, that night I had gone out there and I did X, and I had gotten that from a friend at the time before I did the LSD. Crazy. Anyway, after the whole night happened and it was a really, really horrible night, it really humbled my ass, sat my ass down, I had told that friend what happened. And to me, it was almost like that friend was more concerned with getting in trouble than my safety. That friend was like, well, where's the bottle that you had it in? I see that multi-streaming still causing a problem, huh? We'll be able to get it through for this stream, but Monday I'm just going to be straight up on YouTube. I don't want to take a risk. But yeah, she was more concerned about just the container and could they track it back to her and the fingerprints. And Lord, I came home and when I left the night, I had a shirt, my pants, like a backpack, blah, blah. I came home that night in just boxers, no phone, no wallet, no keys. So the container that the stuff you gave me in, where's that at? And you're worried about the fingerprints on it? And that was a really, really, really close friend to me at the time. I was like almost a best friend. And so sometimes when these situations happen, you see how people, maybe they OD and they get left for dead, or maybe thrown out of the car in front of a hospital or whatever, because people are worried about the repercussions. Nicole, thank you for the 20. Thank you for the super chat. Says my cousin died from OD of fent in 21. They weren't drug users. They got coke with a buddy for their 2-week quarantine. They went home to their separate houses. My cousin died. His buddy didn't. They never charged anyone. Wow. But what I wonder about that story too, Nicole, you can type it in the chat, because that's kind of interesting too. And I'm sorry for your loss, but interesting in the aspect of they got fent, but the other person survived. Was it just that your cousin? I mean, maybe you might not know either, but was it just that your cousin had more of the fent, like it wasn't divided properly, and the other person didn't? The other person had more of a tolerance. So, oh my God, Mel sounds crazy.
Crime Stories with Nancy Grace.
It's not just Jonathan Price, who is Ricky Johnson's brother, that has questions. David Harrington's father, John Harrington, has been very outspoken. Listen.
David Harrington's father, John Harrington, is convinced something happened at Jordan Willis' house when the guys were watching football.
I'm pretty sure, too, they have test kits that you can test for fentanyl if there's fentanyl inside. I think you take a little sample of what you have and put it on whatever, and it'll tell you if it's positive or not. Honestly, man, I don't advocate for doing substances, but I do advocate for safety. I mean, if you're doing this stuff, we're in a day and age, you might want to have some type of test kit to like test this shit.
He believes that Jordan Willis played a part in it. Harrington says he thinks the three men learned something or saw something they shouldn't have seen.
Wow.
And Willis decided, friends or not, got to get rid of you.
There has been a lot of online speculation about how the scientist survived in his bed asleep while his friends died in the backyard. John Harrington, the father of David Harrington, doesn't believe Jordan Willis's claims of not hearing relatives banging on his door. Willis has said he was sleeping with noise-canceling headphones on and heard nothing.
Let's just go over
those noise-canceling headphones do take out a lot. I have some now, and I still hear a little bit in the house, but sometimes I'm listening to stuff with you guys, and I hear like a weird sound on one side, and I think it's in here, and it's not. Nicole said there's more to the story, but that's shortened. They had the same amount from the same person. He was dead in his house for 2 weeks. Wow. And somebody said, too, that Mac Miller's dealer was charged. I wonder if it just depends on evidence and the laws in the state. Fentanyl, Heather says fentanyl cakes and substances, which is one of the first things they teach about Narcan and fentanyl strip testing. Interesting. Cakes and substances. So that means like it might get more concentrated on one side. Like if it's powder or something like that, it could be more concentrated in a particular part of it. I was wondering about that. Like, are these people even mixing things up, compounding things properly?
facts, and then we'll return to Jonathan Price. That's Ricky Johnson's brother. Joining me out of Kansas City is Grace Smith, KCTV5 investigative reporter. Grace, thank you for being with us. Tell me the facts as you know them now.
That's a very good thing, Heather. I didn't know. Heather says, so if you're testing a substance, they tell you to test the bag it came in or test all of the substance versus a portion of the substance to avoid a false negative. That's wild. That makes sense, though. Yeah, Carly, I'm gonna that story you sent me, I'm going to post it on the second channel. Thank you.
Yes, Nancy. Well, thank you so much for having me. I spoke with Jordan Willis's attorney right after this happened, and he kind of just said, you know, bottom line, Jordan had nothing to do with this. Like your reporter just said, he was sleeping with headphones in. He didn't hear any knocks, and when the only thing he heard was when the police came to his door. So that's all that he has told me, and that's all that he believes. And I asked, I said, well, why didn't he go outside at all or check anything or look out the door? And he said he had no reason to do any of that.
No reason to go outside?
No
okay,
reason.
I'm really curious. To Bernarda Villalona joining us, high-profile lawyer who worked in the Homicide Bureau in New York. You can find her at villalonalaw.com. Bernarda, thank you for being with us. Didn't he have to eat? Did he go without eating for 2.5 days? Without drinking water? Nothing? I mean, I want to find out what's on that cell phone of his, not just the 3 victims. Did he answer one text? Did he open one email? Did he answer one phone call? How can you stay knocked out for 2.5 days? I don't get it.
Absolutely, Nancy. A lot of this doesn't make any sense at all. And just from a prosecution vantage point, I'm looking at law enforcement to definitely do this investigation. I understand that they don't want to classify it as a homicide investigation, but I think you need to take the approach.
Why? Why do you understand that?
In terms of...
Because if I've got 3 dead bodies and I've got anybody lying, about anything,
Absolutely, Nancy.
then
Absolutely,
that makes it
Nancy.
suspicious.
We're on the same page. My policy would be investigated as a homicide until it is ruled out, because you know when something is classified as a homicide investigation, it affects the approach of law enforcement. It affects the resources that are poured into an investigation. It affects who you contact and how you loop the prosecutor in. There are so many unanswered questions, and one thing you're going to need from the prosecutor's office, get a warrant for Jordan Willis's phone and let's see what communications he was having during those 2 days.
And that's what I was thinking that too. I think I typed it in chat. Like how are they gonna, if it has anything to do with Jordan, right? How would they even connect it to him or the dealer? You know, they said Mac Miller's dealer was arrested. They might have been able to find. I don't know. I don't know the details of that. I know he OD'd. People loved him, music, stuff like that. Very sad. I think he was with Adriana. He was dating at one point Ariana Grande or whatever. I think she made a song dedicated to him. But yeah, how do they connect this, right? Because the frozen couple story that I covered, these people, they went to the house. I guess they got a search warrant, and they just found a small amount, and I guess they couldn't directly tie it to that, I guess. So they were just charged with possession. I wonder if they go in the text and find some stuff. Jordan already left the house, moved out. All right. And a lot of the times in these situations, when these people get caught up with substances or like police are coming by, that stuff gets tossed, flushed. People get rid of the evidence. So how would they even connect this? I mean, I guess like they were saying, yeah, the text messages, the conversation, not just Jordan's phones, but the people that passed away, their phones. What were some of their previous conversations, calls, emails? There has to be a connection back to the plug somewhere.
Because as of now, we don't have any answers. And our best bet is getting answers from the cell phones of the deceased and the cell phone of Jordan Willis, because it would tell us whether there was any movement. It would tell us what email, text communications, browsing history, photos, videos, anything. That would give us some clues, because obviously there's no physical. We can't see anything physical on the bodies of these three individuals so far that will lead them to think automatically it was a homicide. So you have to do some more digging.
While I have Bernardo Villalona, let me throw a couple of legal ideas at you, and I want to hear what Jonathan Price thinks of them. Number one reason that a person is not named a suspect or a person of interest, a POI, is because once you do, they are suddenly cloaked, shrouded, blanketed.
Carly says, so it would be the dealer who would be arrested, not Jordan. So let me say this. What if Jordan was, hypothetically, what if Jordan was the middleman? Right? Let's say Jordan got the supplies from somebody else, the coke, whatever, brings it to his place, they all party, he gives it to his friends. Would they still go after the dealer? And of course, if Jordan was the one that dealt it, then maybe he would. And then we got to take into context the cousin of Clayton. His name was, forgot, Caleb. He had said that allegedly Jordan was dealing and supplying since high school. That was a pretty big thing to jump out and say. That was a big deal.
With protections under our Constitution. Once they're named a target, a suspect, a POI, you can't just walk up and start asking them questions anymore. Oh, no. That's not allowed.
Absolutely, Nancy. They'll lawyer up immediately.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. So even if it is in LA law enforcement's mind that they're looking at this as a homicide, they're not going to come out and say it, because they're going to get no cooperation at all from anybody once they're named a target. And again, no one has been named a target or a POI, person of interest, yet. Grace Smith, yes, no. Did Jordan Willis's lawyer say anything about handing over his phone to police voluntarily?
Mac, let me see here. Mac said the cousin was high himself, allegedly. So Dorothy said Caleb is an a-hole. I hope Jordan sues him. some of the statements being put out are kind of dangerous. Yeah. I mean, unless the cousin can back it up, I don't know.
No. Not one. I asked about his phone, and he did not tell me one thing about his phone. Or he said,
well, when you asked him the question, what did he do?
He said, I cannot go into that.
Why?
I don't know.
Okay, maybe it's just me, but Jonathan Price, Ricky Johnson, who was found out in the cold, dead, his brother, that doesn't concern you? That the lawyer suddenly says, I can't talk to you about my client's phone. Why not? If he's really asleep 2.5 days, then why can't I look at his phone? And why can't the
And supposedly, you guys remember when we were watching News Nation, Chris Cuomo had said that the attorney had sent him the phone records. Now, we haven't seen it, but supposedly, whatever, News Nation has it. And also, he claimed that he had that robocall app, which I understand why some people use that because they don't want to get these like telemarketing calls. But like for me, sometimes the unknown phone calls are actually really important phone calls. Like, I have to be in contact sometimes with calls that may not be saved for various reasons. Sometimes I get really important calls to, so I don't understand how I guess he's claiming that it's not just telemarketing, any unknown number. Because I sometimes think, what if there's an emergency? What if somebody, one of my family, one of my friends, like they don't have their phone, something happened to them? What if somebody's in jail, locked up? Mel, I need help. Why would I set my phone to block any phone number that's not saved as a contact in my phone? That's nuts to me. But that's what the attorney is, I guess, claiming. That shit don't make sense to me. It's possible, and I know there's an option for that. I've seen things like that before, but I don't know why you would do that. Darcy, thank you so much for the 10. Thank you. Thank you for covering the story. No, thank you for the support. Appreciate it.
lawyer comment? He should say, yeah, we handed it over to the cops. And it shows he didn't answer a single text or phone call during that whole time period.
Yeah, I mean, that doesn't make sense at all to me. And I'm definitely for constitutional rights and all that. But, when it comes down to, people losing their lives, there should be a fine line. And, the lawyer, he was very consistent with, changing.
So it is, okay, so people are saying they do have their phone set like that. Nicole says, I have my iPhone set that any number in my phone that isn't saved will go right to voicemail. Damn. Well, I don't check my voicemail. That shit, if I don't answer the call, it's gone. Unless you text me or whatever. Rose with Thorn says to leave a message. Wow. I can't do that. I don't do that, man. Because the thing, too, to me is like, what if school calls? Like Maddie's school. Like, what if there's an emergency? What if it's a number? I'm surprised people could do that. To me, I couldn't do that. I just could see so many possibilities of like why I would not restrict my phone to calls that are like contacts that are only my phone.
The story and everything, but he was very consistent on not answering the drug question. And now that he did not answer the phone question, that leads me to believe, since he just checked into rehab, he does have a drug problem, and that's why he didn't want to answer it. Maybe there is something on the phone because the lawyer specifically did not answer that question, but he's open to answering all the other questions.
Very curious. And Jonathan Price, you said the lawyer has, to paraphrase what you said, gone along with changing the story.
Really?
What do you mean about
Flossie too? Okay. So I didn't know that. Flossie said I have my phone set like that also. Okay. All right. Damn, Chaos said I don't even answer my family. All right. Okay. So it's not as crazy as I think then. Nicole said I don't have kids. Carly said the cartel and fentanyl is really bad in Missouri. Look it up. And then Nicole said I get a lot of scam calls. Oh, maybe because I have my information kind of scrubbed. It's not 100%, but I don't really get telemarketing. I mean, they have ways to get your number, but I don't really get calls like that.
changing the story? Do you believe that Jordan Willis, let me just call him the homeowner, where this viewing party was being, like everybody gets together to watch the Super Bowl. That's what they were doing. They were watching the Kansas City Chiefs game all together at Jordan Willis's home. What do you mean by changing the story? I'm very curious.
Well, from the very beginning, he said that before the fifth person came out, he said that Jordan was there sporadically throughout the day. And then he also did not mention a fifth person, but once the fifth person came out, then he changed it to saying that there was a fifth person and that he was asleep the entire time. So those were two very specific details that were specific in the opening statement, but then changed over time. And then there's very conflicting statements about the dogs as well, because the fifth person did say that there was a dog present when he was there. And this was at midnight when he left. Therefore, is it between midnight and 2 a.m. you take your dog to your dad's house? That makes zero sense. So the lawyer was very specific that the dogs were not there as well. So there's definitely things not adding up with this statement.
Jonathan Price, I'm glad you mentioned that about the dogs, because I found it too convenient that they just happened to be gone during this 2.5 day period. That the fifth person, who at first wasn't mentioned, says the dog was there at midnight when the person 5 left. Now, Jonathan, I can't even tell you how many thousands, literally thousands, of homicide investigations I've either investigated, helped investigate, helped tried, or covered. Jonathan, like if I ask you right now, who was in your house this morning when you had breakfast? I mean, I can tell you, my husband was there. My 2 children, John, David, and Lucy, were there. The cat, the dog, the 2 guineas, and my mother. We were all there. I didn't leave anybody out, right? Why did he leave out person number 5? Why? But I've seen it so many times when one integral, critical detail is left out. There's a reason that detail is left out. Why? And why is the issue about the dog? Why did that change? Why does he want us to know the dogs are there? Because he would have had to let them out. Another thing you mentioned.
Well, the dogs, they had a little dog door in the backyard. So I don't know if he'd really have to let them out or not. But you could still say that, well, yeah, if they went out to the backyard, I don't know, they weren't interested in the bodies or something, maybe. I don't know. And Hoax was saying, fifth guy completely unscathed by social media sleuths. Yeah, the focus has really been on Jordan. And the cousin, Caleb, they asked him about the fifth person, and he said, I know him, and he's a good guy. So, like, the family, it seems like they're all pointing at Jordan, and people are saying, I don't know, that they know him. People have just said bad things, I guess. So I don't know. And I just wonder too, like somebody was saying, that the fifth guy, did he not see? He didn't really say. He spoke through his attorney. He didn't speak, but did he partake in these drugs as well? Did he just go there and not partake and left? What was up with that?
Mentioned those 2 discrepancies, but let me go back to Grace Smith joining us, KCTV5. Wasn't there a discrepancy in the original story from Jordan Willis about what time the 3 friends left? And when I'm saying the 3 friends, I'm talking about the 3 deceased victims, Ricky Johnson, Clayton McGeeney, and David Harrington.
Yes.
Didn't he say they left, then they came back? What were his conflicting stories about when they left that night?
Yeah, so he said, the lawyer told me in the early mornings, like around 2 a.m., he believes that Jordan got sleepy and said, okay, guys, I'm going to go crash on the couch. And that's what he did. And so he said goodbye to his buddies, and then he thought that they left through the front door. Then he says, wait, actually, he didn't think they left, but he just went to sleep anyways. Mm-hmm. And that other friend left about an hour before this all happened, before he went to the couch. So that's what he told me.
Now, I see how they could explain that away, that he thought they had left, but maybe they didn't leave because he was passed out on the sofa. I mean, could it be as innocuous as that? I thought there was a little more to the story of when they left, that maybe at one point he said they left and they came back, that he had left the door unlocked so his friends could come and go in and out. His story regarding when the 3 victims left did change, and not in an innocuous way. Now we're learning about video that has emerged from a neighbor. Listen.
Tuesday, January 9th, Ashton Brady is getting ready for bed around 10 p.m. when he notices a woman walking around Jordan Willis's house, very distressed. Minutes later, police are on the scene.
He did say, didn't Jordan say he fell asleep on the couch first? He did. He probably generally passed out from the fan, was lucky enough to wake up. Yeah, but then he said that he had seen them walk out the front door. But I guess not that he because I thought they tried to follow up, and he was like, well, he didn't walk them. He kind of I don't know, but he saw them leave out through the front. And then that maybe they came back after.
Scene, as well as an ambulance. Brady starts recording video when he sees Jordan Willis standing on his front stoop in handcuffs and his underwear. The neighbor said the police took the handcuffs off and put him in a police car and drove away. Police were then seen going through the house room by room with flashlights searching for more evidence. Police have stressed that they are not treating it as a homicide and are continuing to investigate.
Curious. I'm trying to figure out what all of this means. I understand that at first they handcuffed Jordan Willis and then later unhandcuffed him. What do you know about that, Grace Smith?
Yeah, so I actually went to the home of where the video was taken yesterday. Didn't get any answers, but so I don't know exactly, and we didn't report on that video, so I can't go into that specifically. But the house was just directly across, so could see very clearly what was going on.
Well, also, if he is out, the neighbor is out, for instance, walking his dog, I mean, he can walk down closer to the house and get the video. Parts of the video have emerged already. It's kind of hard to make out, but you can see certain portions of what's going on. To your understanding, let me go back to Ricky's brother, Jonathan Price. What is your understanding of that video?
I mean, it does look like he was detained in the very grainy parts that you can see there, but it just doesn't make sense to me if you left in a police car uncuffed, which I didn't think that was a common thing to transfer somebody in a police vehicle, unless you rule out everything. But that's the part that doesn't make sense, how you can rule it out without.
5 minutes faster, cops have to have an arrest to even get a sample from Jordan or interrogate him. Due to HIPAA laws, they can't touch him in rehab without one.
Investigate it any further. Maybe that's just to remove him from the scene or whatever. But my biggest question was, if they did take him to the police station, did they drug test him as well? Yeah. And if so, what were the results of that? Because they definitely already have that. And is there any commonality between what he has in his system and what's in my brother's system? Because that seems very important.
Yes, it does. And joining us is renowned medical examiner, Dr. Jan Gorniak, to answer those questions. First, I want you to analyze for me, Todd G. Shipley, what we're learning about attempts to unlock the victims' cell phones. Listen to Sydney Sumner, Crime Online.
Cops are asking for codes to unlock the phones of 37-year-old David Harrington, 36-year-old Clayton McKinney, and 38-year-old Ricky Johnson. Investigators say combing through the cell phones of the 3 Kansas City Chief fans will show who they talked to, where they went, and when they ended up outside the house on the porch and in the backyard.
Again, according to what we are learning right now from KCTV5's Grace Smith, Jordan Willis's lawyer won't comment on his phone. But to Taji Shipley joining us, digital cybercrime expert, former detective sergeant, and author of Investigating Internet Crimes, an Introduction to Solving Crimes in Cyberspace. And you can find him at darkintel.info. Todd Shipley, thank you for being with us. Do you remember in the recent trial of Alex Murdaugh, on trial for double murder, they actually had to bring in a former Secret Service person to unlock to testify about unlocking the phone. How do you unlock a phone? It's not that easy if you don't have the code, even for police.
Thanks, Nancy, for having me on this morning. Yes and no. I mean, it depends on the resources available to them. The thing is, they're part of the computer forensic laboratory that's there in Kansas City. So they have the resources available to do that. And law enforcement has available to them certain tools that help that. Now, if we look back, previously in other cases, even the FBI has had problems with specific kinds of phones, particularly the iPhones. And I haven't heard yet what kind of phones these are, but unlocking them sometimes can be trivial depending on the kind of phone and the operating system that's on it. The older operating systems, if it hasn't been updated, are easier to get to. So they should be able to get into those phones regardless. The simplest method is to ask the family for the codes. That's what they tried to do. Then they've got to go and use these specific kinds of tools to try to break into the phones, which can take some while because in these cases, they're actually trying to come up with a password that by brute forcing or using multiple different kinds of passwords to get into the phone to figure out which is the password. So it could take a while, but
it could. I don't know what kind of phone Jordan had. It's been a long time since I've really messed with phones. Back in the day, I used to, I guess you could call it jailbreak. When I had my little Android, you could, if you have your own phone, you could I think it was called rooting. And it's basically you just unlock your phone and you have all kinds of access to your phone. You can take off restrictions and stuff like that. After a while, it wasn't worth it because and the security on the phones got better and stuff like that. But I'm sure they can do it. Somehow get access to it if needed.
But there's so much information on those phones, and that can't be overlooked. There's a ton of information, particularly on the iPhones, about where the person was and what they were doing. There's the health app that's on these phones that records where you walk to. So they're going to know exactly what the one person that lived, what happened to him and where he was in the house, as well as the people that passed away. They're going to know exactly what happened if they get in those phones.
I'm also encouraged by the fact, as you pointed out, phones track your movements.
Yeah, I mean, how many trials have we seen where, look at Alex Murdaugh, where they're literally counting his steps, and they're saying it would have taken this amount of steps to get there, and then at this time, all of a sudden, this person's running. Why were they running at this time? And blah blah blah. But there's also the steps can be a little bit inaccurate and stuff like that too. But it has been used during trials. I'm sure it can be used during in this situation too. Our phones collect a lot of information. I think that they're always listening too. Sometimes I just have conversations about whatever, any product, without me even having done a Google search or anything. All of a sudden, I'm seeing ads for that product. I used to joke and say damn, these people, they know what I'm thinking. I think about a product and all of a sudden I'm seeing ads, but I think they're just listening all the time.
And the time of your movements. So not only will their texts, their computer searches, their photos, we know they were taking photos that night. What else was there? And I really want to find out about the homeowner, as we are calling him, Jordan Willis's phone. Did they hand it over? Did they demand a search warrant? If it's not a homicide investigation, can cops even get a search warrant? We know they haven't gotten into some of the phones because they're asking the family if they know the codes. You'd be surprised, everybody, to find out, and I've researched this for my last book, Don't Be a Victim, how many people use 1212 or 123, 123, or 1111, or of course 007, or believe it or not, 69, 69, 69. Yes, very common still. Long story short, a huge percentage of people.
Hoke says, fun fact, cocoa leaves do not grow in North America, too cold. I always wanted to try cocoa leaves. When I see the documentaries, they're just chewing on the leaves and stuff. It gives you a little boost. I always want to try just chewing on a cocoa leaf. See what happens. Yeah, seriously, crimes have consequences. When I used to talk about and mention Kachava during the live streams, people would start getting the Kachava ads. Yeah. Let me see. There was something somebody else said, but okay, here we go. Dorothy had said, please address not charged equals no drug test. Even without a warrant or consent, Elliot cannot willy-nilly drug test for F's sake. Jordan has rights. I mean, yeah, he hasn't been charged of anything. And he willingly let the cops come into his house before he got an attorney, come into his house. And I don't know what exactly the cops did in the house, but he's not charged. I don't advocate for people like stalking people, sending death threats or anything like that. Maybe he's gotten some, I don't know. But yeah, I don't advocate for that. We're here talking about it, but he is presumed innocent until proven guilty. It's just a very, very suspicious story for sure. And then when you have, it's not only just the internet, but then when you have like family saying certain things and then the cousin, the internet, the internet's going to go crazy. Try a cola nut. You still getting the ads, Carly? Oh, because those smart TVs have microphones, and I think they do have cameras, some of them. And there was a whole thing about wasn't there a whole thing where the cameras on the TVs were recording something? TV cameras recording. I thought there was something like that going on at one point. Into the news. Maybe not. What is it? TV cameras. Let's try spying. Let me change the word. Your TV is spying on you, but you can't stop it. There's quite a bit of articles on it. I wouldn't be surprised if. I don't even think about it. I don't really care. It's not like there's anything, but it's kind of weird too, Yeah, they're always listening.
Use predictable codes like 123 123. Many people use their lucky number 777777. It's very easy, and every X number of seconds or minutes, you can retry different codes. That's how you break a code.
Right.
But they haven't broken them yet because they're asking family, "Hey, we can't crack it. Do you know the code?"
And what she's talking about is something called in the tech world or whatever, it's called brute force attacks. And it's like when an app is constantly trying different passwords to guess what the password is. And so it's doing brute force. It's just going through a bunch of different words to try to come up with a combination of what the password is. So, and of course, there's restrictions, certain social media platforms. Maybe you can only try a certain amount of password every couple hours or something like that. And so it's a very old method that's been used for a very long time. I guess they're not having success, maybe.
That's where that stands. I'm also curious, Bernardo Villalona, they can't look at Jordan Willis's phone if he's a target. And I'm curious why the lawyer won't comment on it unless he hands over his phone.
Exactly.
Right?
So, Nancy, the only way for law enforcement to get to the phone of Jordan Willis is whether he consents to turn over his phone and for his phone to be searched. That's number one. Or two, there's a search warrant that's signed by a judge, but then you'll need probable cause in order to get the search warrant approved. So in terms of Jordan Willis's attorney not commenting on the phone, I think he's trying to see where this investigation goes. He doesn't want to make any comments that if there is an arrest.
If you want to find out why your friends died, why don't you just hand over the phone?
You know what?
If the cops say to me, "Hey, can I look at your phone?" I'm going, "Sure, enjoy my 22,000 pictures of the twins." Literally, get after it. So why not hand over the phone? Now, as to cause of death, that is Jonathan Price's big question. Joining us, renowned board-certified forensic pathologist, former medical examiner, Dr. Jan Gorniak. And she didn't practice at, for instance, where I grew up, Rutland County, and Rutland area of Bibb County, where all you could see is pine trees and soybean fields. She practiced in Vegas. Never a lack of business at the morgue. Dr. Gorniak, before you give me your opinion, I want you to hear about the weather that evening. Take a listen to Nicole Parton from crimeonline.com.
David Harrington's father is also challenging the idea that the men froze to death. Daily Mail reports John Harrington saying, "I don't think it's very likely they froze to death like some people are saying. It just wasn't cold enough." The temperature for Kansas City late in the night of Sunday, January 7, was around 36 degrees, and the temp remained above freezing all day Monday, January 8. Tuesday, January 9, was the coldest day when it was 26 degrees by 2 p.m. and 20 at 10 p.m. The first 36 hours of the mystery, the temp is at or above freezing, and it is only the last 12 hours where it gets really cold.
And we also know that the 3 victims were found on January 9, and that is when around 2 p.m. it started getting colder. So it wasn't freezing, Dr. Jan Gorniak.
I heard that, but when you talk about freezing, people are thinking about above freezing of water. 30 degrees is cold for a person to be outside. You wouldn't go outside without a hat or gloves, or a scarf on and stay outside. That is cold. I'm a runner. Once it gets below 50, I start putting earmuffs on because my ears get cold. So 30 degrees and less below for a human is cold. So we don't want to say like the body froze. People think frozen. Very rarely do we have frozen bodies unless they're really out there, in snow and ice and out there for a prolonged period of time, or literally in a freezer where the body freezes. So the term froze to death is not accurate. So the term that we would use would be hypothermia, so low body temperature. So when you're out in the elements and not protecting yourself from that, then your body can't, and that's why we start shivering, right? Your body shivers when you get too cold because you want to try to warm yourself up. So that's what we're talking about. Not really freezing, but a low body temperature. It's going to be difficult to say what their temperature was unless the death investigator, when they got to the scene or even at the morgue, took a body temperature. And I'm not sure the policies and procedures of that particular office. So when your body temperature gets below 90, that's when you start being hypothermic. So it's not, I don't want people to think freezing as in ice or even not to be, crude, like when you freeze meat in a freezer. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about low body temperatures, hypothermia. And those temperatures are low enough to cause hypothermia.
I watched this movie a couple of days ago on Netflix. I don't know. I think it was based off a true story. I'm not sure. It was about these people in the Andes that crashed. I think the plane crashed, and these people have to survive out in the cold. Oh, Society of Snow. That was really good. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, the way these people had to survive, I really kind of enjoyed that film. I don't know if it's based off a true story. Let me see. Yes, the movie Society of Snow is inspired by real life events. Wow. That was a crazy, crazy story. The way these people had to survive out there. Nuts. Society. Yeah, that's a good watch if you're interested. It's a subtitle, and I think it's in Spanish. So if you don't like subtitles, then you might not like that. But it was really, really interesting.
Easiest decision you'll
leading and
taking center stage where black is.
Wouldn't your brother have just gone to his car or gone back inside?
Yes.
I like that movie a lot.
Common sense.
I think I've seen
he
that.
never went outside without a coat on. I mean, getting my terms right, hypothermia is.
Oh, actually, I haven't seen that.
Understandable, but that's not the root cause. My brother is a smart man, and
it's the same kind of story. So both Society of Snow and Alive are based on the same true story. Oh, okay. So I haven't watched Alive.
I mean, the other two men always looked out for each other. So the odds of 3 men going through hypothermia, which is a process that takes time, all at the exact same time is the part that doesn't make sense. I mean, we can go back and forth about terms, but that's not a cause I would accept. I'll start saying hypothermia.
Hey, I want to follow up on something you just said, Jonathan. The likelihood, and no one has discussed this, the likelihood that all three would drop dead with hypothermia in the backyard at the same time, with two of them out in the backyard and one of them, and oh yeah, I want to follow up with you, Grace Smith. How far were the backyard bodies from the porch and the window? Okay, I want to follow up on that. But to Jonathan Price, the likelihood that they're all three going to die of hypothermia, two out in the yard, one lying on a lounge chair, I think, on the back porch. I mean, how could you miss that?
Yeah, I mean, they're different sized men.
That's extremely low.
Yeah.
Right. May I jump back in? This is Dr. Gorniak again. If I can jump back in. And
yes.
Jonathan, you're absolutely correct. So there's something else that's going on. So before they get to that point, we don't know, once again, waiting for the toxicology. So I believe too, the hypothermia could be the end point because they were left outside in the elements. And they might have been unresponsive for whatever reason, whether it be alcohol or other drugs. I don't know. But you're absolutely correct. It's not like they were out, skiing or walking outside and got lost, their cars broken down altogether. But there is something else. So you are correct. I believe hypothermia is part of it, but there's something is missing. And without that, the missing piece, which is the toxicology or other things they saw at autopsy, there is no cause of death. Right now, the cause of death is undetermined, and the manner of death is undetermined. We don't know if it's an accident or a homicide.
Dr. Gorniak, for all three,
I agree,
to perish.
I totally agree. That's why there is another contributing factor that is missing, and we don't know that missing piece yet. You're absolutely correct.
Agree. And now we have the issue of the homeowner, as we're calling him, checking himself in to rehab. Have you
technically not the homeowner, but
again, notice every time a Hollywood celebrity gets in trouble, like they're in
person
deep,
that rented the place.
Let me think. I gave up cursing when I had the twins. Deep doo-doo. They run and check into rehab. Okay. Take a listen to NicolePartonCrimeOnline.com.
Jordan Willis packed his things and left just days after the discovery of his three friends dead outside while he slept for 2 days straight. He moved everything into storage and checked into a rehab. The investigators said Willis was not a suspect in the deaths, but family and friends of the men who died have questioned a lot of the story they have heard from Willis. A source close to Jordan Willis tells Fox Digital, quote, after the shocking loss of three of his close friends under extremely tragic circumstances, Jordan recognized that he had a problem with addiction. The source did not elaborate on the exact nature of the addiction. The deceased men's toxicology reports are still pending, but a neighbor said two of them were supposedly...
That's a good question, Louise. Are people liable for their guests' safety on their property? I don't know, because so if somebody comes to your house, I don't know, and they get injured, can they sue you? They could sue you, right? I guess. Wouldn't it be crazy? I don't know.
Seen arriving at Willis's with 30 packs of beer.
Okay. Even if they had been drinking, the likelihood of all three drinking heavily, the likelihood of all three of them passing out at the same time outside and all three dying of hypothermia at the same time is statistically impossible.
Nobody's coming over.
That does not make sense. To Jonathan Price, Ricky Johnson's brother, weigh in. I've got to hear your analysis. And have you also heard reports that the bodies were dragged?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard reports of that. I mean, I haven't seen anything official about that, so I can't really comment on the dragging part. But as far as the likelihoods and everything, yeah, I mean, like I said from the very beginning, these three men were inseparable. You look at any of their Facebooks, any picture that's posted that's not of their family, it's of these men. And if just one of them, even two of them, passed out at the same time, which is already like impossible, the other man would have absolutely brought them inside and called for help, something. So that's just insane.
We also know that the version of events has changed. Listen to Rachel Bonilla.
The current version of events has Jordan Willis waving the 3 other men off at 2 a.m. after the game, and he went to sleep on the couch. By 2 a.m., the game had been finished for at least 7 hours, as it was a 3:25 kickoff and the game lasted 3 hours. Willis still says he had no clue that 3 men were laying outside for 2 days. John Harrington points out that his son David was a big man, 300 pounds, and he was on the open porch while the other 2 were in the yard.
So to you, Grace Smith, joining us KCTV5, is that possible? Can you walk around downstairs and never look, never see, inadvertently even, out the front door or the back door? I mean, the front windows or the back windows?
I mean, I've looked at that backyard with my own 2 eyes. I think for me, it would be hard. But I'm just nosy, so I feel like I would definitely see something. But if you're not looking, I guess possibly not. But for me, I feel like hearing that, seeing the backyard with my own 2 eyes, that would be very, very difficult.
I mean, isn't it a natural reaction, Dr. John De La Torre? I guess I got to ask a shrink. Isn't it natural to look out the window while you're walking through or sitting down having a cup of tea?
Yeah, absolutely.
Who would just not even look out the window?
Well, here's the thing is that you're assuming that he was sober any of that time. I mean, I'm not saying that he was asleep 2 days. That's absolutely ridiculous. And if he's in the throes of addiction the way that he's claiming to be, then he's for sure not staying asleep. He's got to get up and he's got to drink or use whatever he needs to use. That's his drug of choice. But there's nothing to assume that he was sober and actually paying attention to his surroundings. You can't trust anything that he's saying. If he's accurate in saying that that he's got a problem with drugs and alcohol, you can't trust anything that he says, because more than likely it was tinged with some kind of illicit substance. So of course he's not looking outside or going outside. Of course he's not getting dressed, right? Because he's not sober.
I mean, think about it. When you're on a plane, your natural instinct is to look out. People that are afraid of flying, they have to shut the window, because the natural instinct is to look out the window. I'm just not believing that he goes over 2 days and doesn't even look out a window.
Wait, it's not that.
It's possible. I mean, we've had this conversation already before. Some people would say that in their backyards, they don't really look out the backyard, some people, or even go out there to the backyard. And some people keep their whole place closed. I personally like the windows, the shades open. I'm in an apartment right now, but I like the natural light coming from the outside. It helps wake me up in the morning. I just love like the lighting coming, but some people, they're just in the dark. I don't know if that's how Jordan's thing was, but some people are just in the dark, blackout shades. It's just, in a cave or something. I don't know. Some people aren't too involved in their backyards, and he was renting. Well, and it's winter too, right? I think this dude probably maybe was in and out, passed out, and maybe he took something as well. I just don't get how he survived. I guess I don't know.
It's not that he's not looking out the window. It's that he's so hungover or he's so intoxicated he doesn't even know what he's seeing.
Guys, it's not just Jonathan Price, who is Ricky Johnson's brother. John Harrington.
Yo, Purple Coconut says open shades makes it easier to look in. That's so true. If I ever get into a house, I don't know. But that's true, because you can kind of sometimes, you can't really see down here, but you can, if I leave my shades open at night, you can kind of see maybe the TV, the ceiling a little bit from the outside, like all the way out there.
Harrington, father of David Harrington, is in so much pain and not getting answers. Listen.
John Harrington, father of one of the deceased, David Harrington, says he isn't getting info from the police. The Daily Mail reports that Harrington says he has been in the dark regarding the investigation and says he just wants to know what happened to his son. Harrington says everything he has put together about what he thinks happened is just him. The police haven't shared anything with him. Harrington said, "My son is dead. Why?"
To Jonathan Price, tell me what your family is going through right now.
I mean, this has been the most difficult thing that I've ever faced in my life, and you know, I've been through things, not that I would ever share or anything, but it's immeasurable to lose somebody that growing up, he was somebody I always admired. I looked up to him, and he's one of very, very few people in my life that I can say we never fought, even when I was a kid. And he was 8 years older than me. We never fought once. And I always jokingly said, except for whenever I wanted to watch Power Rangers and he wanted to watch Sports Center. You know, that's the only time we ever fought, but I'm perfectly fine with that. And I'm going to be living with regrets of not talking to my brother as much as I should have throughout these years. But this is so difficult. And I mean, I can't speak for my entire family, but you know, I would understand everybody because of what Ricky was in their lives.
What was it like growing up with him?
It was a good time. Looking back, obviously, as a child, I always thought he was picking on me and stuff like that. But looking back, I mean, it's so cherished memories. And, you know, even before he passed, we would always joke about it and laugh about it. You know, taking me to sports, going to see him play football in high school and college. I mean, he was just an all-around amazing person. And once he had his first daughter, you know, things changed for him. Everything was about her and trying to make things right. And I mean, it hurts me to think of him suffering, and I hope that he was not suffering at this time. But I mean, my brother was an amazing man, and anybody that knew him would tell you that. And what he would do for them without any questions asked. He had such a
cut out. That was it, huh? All right. Let's see. Sarah said, I just lost it. Oh, is the chat down? Sarah said, you don't smoke Fent. It's pills or snorting. Oh, okay. All right. There's a few. I'll have to get out of here soon. Oh, I don't know if we could do this now. Well, I can skip past. Let's see. Let's try to see if we can. Let me see. Did we watch this already?
This happened, about 3 weeks ago? And I'm a little surprised at the this call for these answers to be immediate. In the fast food world we live in here, it's like they want the 43 minutes of a television show with no commercials, and it just doesn't work that way. It's a tragic scene. I don't know that it wasn't secured by those officers that responded. There is a video out that purportedly shows that they had.
Well, people do put Coca-Cola in like weed and roll it up and smoke it. So if Fent and Coke were cut together, you could well, you did say smoke, right? I think she said smoke. No, yeah, you could smoke it actually. I don't recommend it. Probably not a good idea, but you could inhale that stuff, I guess.
Willis in custody at the time that they arrived. I've also read where another person that was going to the scene approached it. There were police everywhere, and there was some caution tape, to use their term, around the house. So that would indicate to me that there was some sort of crime scene tape causing a barrier, which would indicate that they have secured the scene. Now, as far as what was recovered there and so forth and so on, we won't know that until we understand what law enforcement presents to us as to what they recovered. In terms of a felony.
But wait, because we absolutely know at this point that, you know, as Ricky Johnson was dead and frozen out in the backyard that we're looking at right now, his backpack was sitting in that home. And when Jordan Willis, the owner, moved out because he was under so much scrutiny, he went off into hiding, and now he's in rehab.
Ashley,
the backpack was still there. It was another
It stayed there after Jordan left?
Another family friend that brought Ricky's backpack out of that home and over to his family to reunite his belongings with his family. And I just can't for the life of me figure out, if you have 3 dead men mysteriously in the backyard, and you've cuffed the homeowner and then uncuffed him and taken him downtown to question him, how would you not process that scene a little more carefully? How would you not take a backpack of one of the victims and notice 2 bottles that have pills in them, one antacid and ibuprofen? Maybe, I don't know, and no one will never know because no one bothered to look.
Well, and I don't either. I mean, I wasn't there, so I don't know if there were pictures taken and they felt like that was good enough. I don't know, but
wouldn't be good for a felony murder case, would it, Phil? Honestly, like, it would not hold muster in a felony murder case, right? Because somebody would say, I want to test those pills. You know, you can't. Sorry, we left them in the house.
We are so far away from a felony murder case with this thing that
are we?
That's not. Oh yeah. This is, look, I tell you what needs to happen here, in my view. And I'm looking at this through the eyes of a homicide cop. I'm not looking at it, with any particular. I've got no dog in the fight in that sense. Yeah. What I'm looking at here is we have a scene. We have 3 dead bodies in the backyard, and the circumstances under which they're there is what's in question. Now, we've got this tox test that we've not been given the official results, but if we're talking about a mixture of cocaine, fentanyl, THC, they were smoking dope, and I don't know if there's ethanol, alcohol involved in this thing or not, but a lot of these drugs, a lot of these narcotics that are taken cause the body to heat up in an abnormal way. And what do people do when that happens? So they move outside.
They go outside. Yeah. You're right. And I was asking if the bodies had their clothes removed, because that was another.
That I was wondering about that too. Yeah, that's a good question. With the LSD stuff and the X, I took off my clothes.
Big question. I have to wrap it there, Phil, but I think you're onto something with that. I think you're on real quick.
Well, I've seen this mostly with MDMA, with methylene dioxymethamphetamine.
There you go, MDMA.
Ecstasy, where the body heats up and people will take their clothes off, run out in the dead of winter to get cooled down. So I don't know if that's what happened here. So my question is, these are grown men celebrating the Kansas City Chiefs game. They won it. They're really celebrating. And they're doing it in this, they ingested this stuff voluntarily. They got outside. So my question here is, were they dead as a result of what they took? Or did they pass out because of the intoxication and they froze to death?
Yep.
So my question, they're doing it in this, they ingested this stuff voluntarily. They got outside. So my question here is, were they dead as
Well, that's the thing too, voluntarily, right? I mean, unless it's found out that somehow they were like poisoned. Well, they ingest voluntarily, but I don't know. Did they know they were going to ingest fent and stuff like that? I don't know.
As a result of what they took, or did they pass out because of the intoxication and they froze to death?
Yep. And that we don't know. And you're right. Autopsy is going to bring that, and we are waiting for that. That's.
Yeah, I'm curious. We haven't seen this one. This is a newer one. Oh, I haven't seen it.
I'm not saying that I would tell us everything, even though there's an ongoing investigation. I get it. But if fentanyl killed these young men and they didn't even know that they were taking it, what if these drugs weren't given to them by Jordan Willis? What if they are available in the community? Or what if they were given by him and there's more of it out there? That's my question. We reached out to the mayor's office and the Kansas City, Missouri police for answers. They don't want any part of us. That's their choice. Our choice is to stay on it. And that's why Fox 4 Kansas City's reporter Malik Jackson is pushing for answers, because it matters. Look, the community is not completely ignorant of the reality of fentanyl. They've gotten hit also in the Kansas City and surrounding areas. There could be poison drugs out there. Malik Jackson, good to have you.
Yeah, Chris, thanks for having me. And, that's what our focus was today on reporting. It's because You know, that's the thing now. Now that you know what was in these systems, it's now the responsibility of authorities to make sure that this community is safe. And right now, we're just not getting the answers that they need to give. It shouldn't be an option. They need to speak. They need to give these answers because lives depend on it.
Right. And I respect, and I know you do also, ongoing investigation. All right, you're not asking for what charges are going to come and against whom. It's should the community be aware. Now, what does it tell you that they don't see the urgency as we do?
It's concerning, and what it screams to me is that they don't have a handle of this problem. Over the course of my reporting today, Chris, you might be shocked to find this out, but a source told me that there were 2 people who died of overdoses just yesterday in Kansas City, Missouri. So we did our due diligence. We reached out to the police department, and that is in fact the case, that just on yesterday, 2 more lives right here in Kansas City were lost to overdoses. And obviously we're waiting for those tests and those results to come back, but it's not, you know, something that they shouldn't know is a problem, because we talked to the 2 neighboring jurisdictions today, because KCPD is not being cooperative, to say the least. And those 2 neighboring jurisdictions, one said that the problem is that theirs is an astronomical rise of what they've seen in fentanyl over the last year. Okay, over the last 3 years in Kansas City, Kansas, which is to the west of Kansas City, Missouri, they've seen a steady and alarming rise for 3 years. And so they're now tackling the problem. And so it's concerning that the police department hasn't said anything. And it's also concerning how they've handled this investigation, I think, from the jump. And I think a lot of people are concerned about that as well.
Yeah, fentanyl is also a little bit of a boogeyman, right? People are slow to track it. Some argue that they're slow to want to track it because it kind of like is a stain on you as a police force, as a community, that you have fentanyl. But it's everywhere, and it could be anyone. Malik Jackson, thank you.
Okay.
3, that someone negligently, recklessly, or intentionally caused this killing, this death. Let's bring in the first family members to speak out since the report, okay? The father and stepmother of victim David Harrington. Now, you may take exception to that and say, he's not a victim. He did this. I think it's an open question. Teresa and John Harrington, thank you both for joining us. I'm very sorry for your family's loss. But Teresa, how does this information, what does it mean to you about what matters here?
What matters is that he didn't take that to die. Something happened between either that was given to him. It just means that there's more to the story. There's more to it than just that. He didn't take the drugs to get dead. If he took the drugs on his own, he took them to get high. So right. I think there's more to the story.
John, do you believe that these were drugs that the fellas brought with them that night? Or do you believe they got them there that night?
I really don't know, but my thinking is that they got them there.
And why does that change the analysis for you?
Because somebody gave them something that would kill them.
Right. And then the problem with this situation is, well, then why is Jordan Willis alive? Although maybe it explains why he was asleep for 2 days. And why did someone else escape with their life, but not these 3 gentlemen? And how did they wind up, your son and 2 others, outside when this was happening? Teresa, where does your mind take you on those questions?
David wasn't a drug addict or anything like that. Peer pressure, Jordan Willis is in rehab. He could have, I don't know, just the peer pressure of taking, hey, I'm going to take this. You guys want some? And they went outside because they were warm or something like that. And, he stayed inside. They went outside and they, passed out outside, maybe.
I mean, it's very consistent with fentanyl, right? I mean, what fentanyl does is it slows down your breathing so much that you can very easily pass out and be unaware of the cold.
Right, exactly. And then some of those drugs warm your body up, and you don't feel cold as quickly, and you can succumb to hypothermia pretty quick.
What does it mean to you that the police are saying, Ms. Harrington, that this is not a homicide investigation? They are not looking at this as this being someone's fault criminally.
We keep getting answers that they're still investigating. So there's something there that they're saying maybe that's not right as well, but they don't have enough to charge or, interrogate someone a little deeper.
Right. And John, lastly, it's not a criticism, it's an observation. If your son and these other men got these drugs, there could be more of these drugs. They could be in other people's hands that they aren't aware also. And John, does that give you some cause for concern that the authorities should be more vocal to the community to be careful? It's not like fentanyl isn't a problem in the community.
Absolutely does.
Where innocent people can die.
Right, Teresa? I mean, that's the concern. I mean, people need to be aware. No one and nowhere is safe from fentanyl as a drug unlike any we've ever seen. And I hope.
All right, so that was that video. The last thing I wanted to touch on, and I'm running a little bit over time that I wanted to be on, but I wanted to show.
Took on the Los Angeles, but families have received.
And they
let's see who this is.
We haven't seen it. Families have report has been completed. It's been handed over to police, and even some of the victims' families have received the tox report or at least learned what's inside of it. We haven't seen it publicly. It hasn't completely been released, and I'm wondering why not.
Well,
fans were found dead of the mysterious case
with the
died. 3 cancer survivor who was
had fentanyl in it.
Newly released toxicology report is shedding new light on what may have happened, with reports of cocaine and fentanyl in the men's systems.
They like to party, so to speak. They like to drink, and they probably got some cocaine that had fentanyl in it.
The event leaving behind just one sole survivor who was handcuffed after the bodies were found. Could he now face charges?
Bro, what is going on right now? What is going on right now?
It's been nearly 1 month since 3 Kansas City Chiefs seen widespread coverage of.
So, and along with the Swift and Kelsey, their relationship, anything will engage with the Kansas City Chiefs is going to be hitting the news.
That was retired FBI agent Colin Schmidt, who says there's a lot of reasons why the case has stayed in the headlines, but there may soon be more answers.
The fact that it was just such a horrible circumstance where 3 people were found outside, basically frozen to death. But I think as they drive in, they probably didn't freeze to death. They probably died of a drug overdose.
Here's what we do know. On January 7th, the Kansas City Chiefs took on the Los Angeles Chargers for the last game of the regular season. That night, Jordan but the friend of the greeter on January 9th. The bodies of Johnson and Harrington, police learned what's inside of it. We haven't seen it publicly. It hasn't completely been released. And I'm wondering why not?
Well, I think they're still trying to determine cause of death. And then basically there might have to be an autopsy to determine if there was another factor that caused the deaths of these 3. I don't know if they did an autopsy when they recovered the victims. They did say in the article that you sent me that it was 30 degrees outside and they were found dead. I don't recall if they were found in the snow or not, but generally speaking, 30-degree weather, you're going to be able to kind of save yourself, so to speak. Now, if it was 30 below or what I used to deal with in Wisconsin when you have that wind going, yeah, you could freeze to death very quickly if you weren't dressed appropriately. But in this case, they would.
Little Patty says, in my opinion, after Jordan went to bed, the 3 victims decided to smoke a blunt outside, but they didn't know it was laced with fent. That's plausible too. A friend of mine was saying too that maybe these 3 guys continued the party after this dude laid down or went to bed or whatever Jordan was doing, or Jordan passed out or whatever.
Likely would have survived for quite some time in with that temperature. So it really comes back to answer your question, why are they not?
Because if they smoked it, that would have hit him hard and fast.
Not being specific about a cause of death.
I don't know about the other ingestion route, how fast it would hit or take, but well, snorting is really fast too, I guess. So
I think they want to make sure they have their ducks in a row, because if it turns out that it was a fentanyl overdose, for example, they don't want to tip off whoever gave them the drugs. And also they want to be prepared to make some arrests.
High-speed chases.
Oh. That was actually dope. That school bus one.
January 9th, he allegedly said
The cops were, reacting to very imperfect information. I mean, they just got 3 dead people in a yard and the only survivors there. The first thing they're going to do is they're going to take actions to protect their own safety, which may have been the reason why they handcuffed him, or they got information from an informant or somebody called in or whatever that he was a culpable to this. And at that point, the cops did what cops do, is they basically are going to detain him and question him. And then as the information comes out, the U.S. Attorney or the DA's office might have said, well, we don't have enough necessarily right now to charge him. Why don't we just take a step back and continue to gather information?
That new information comes in the way of a toxicology report. Let's talk about drugs here, because that is something a lot of people have been speculating.
And Jill says, not that it matters, but you can snort fent. She's a recovering addict.
About really since this case began, and now we're seeing reports that there were substances in some of the victims' systems. Some are saying cocaine and fentanyl, and that's a big one a lot of people are pointing out, a potential fentanyl overdose. What do you make of that?
Well, I had a case very at the tail end of my career of a fentanyl of a cocaine laced party drug, and the victims had no idea there was fentanyl in it, nor did they want fentanyl, obviously. And they all ingested this, and out of the 6 people that ingested it, 4 died and 2 went to the hospital, or 2 survived. So one thing about fentanyl is if you're opioid tolerant.
We've been talking about this, and I mentioned in the other video too, tolerance.
There's a possibility that you would survive if the cocaine was laced with fentanyl. But it appears to me that these 3 were not heroin addicts. They liked the party, so to speak. They liked to drink, and they probably got some cocaine that had fentanyl in it. And so the next step is who gave them the cocaine or that was particularly laced, and that's the person they're going to hold accountable.
All this adds up with our first report on the case.
We saw this one already.
He's the man who was renting the house where this entire party happened. He survived and he's alive, but he says that he has missing 48 hours. Is it possible that he too took whatever could have been laced with this fentanyl, let's say?
Yes, and that basically, when I saw that, because that happened in the case that I investigated, one of the survivors slept or was passed out for about 2 days, and he woke up. He saw his 2 friends were deceased.
Wow, what a way to wake up from a high.
So he basically was in an opioid overdose state, but he was also a user of heroin, so he was able to survive the amount.
Very, very, very interesting video. And this former FBI sharing his thoughts. Because that could be maybe the answer to if Jordan partook, why maybe he survived. Of course, these guys were outside too, so like there's a difference. These guys were outside. It could just be, whatever. But also Jordan maybe having the tolerance. That's why the autopsy is going to be important, because I want to know if they just died from the substance, or was it because they were passed out and froze. Were they regular users or were they not? The 3 men. Had they done this before, or was it their first time? The concoction.
Amount of fentanyl that he ingested. So when I saw that, I'm thinking they all ingested the same batch, and he was just the only one that survived.
According to weather.com, the low in Kansas City on January 7th was 32 degrees. The next day saw a low of 31, and the day the bodies were found had a low of 15 degrees. That means it was likely Willis's placement inside the house saved his life. Perhaps if he was overdosing and he was out for those 48 hours, what was his saving grace, so to speak, is that he was indoors and these other people were outside where the elements could kind of get to him. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the temperature saved him. The other three, because it was 30 degrees, the body has to conserve energy. So it's either going to, it has to put its energy somewhere. But if it's in an overdose state, the body obviously can't react or can't help that person survive. So the other person, he was laying warm and cozy in his bed or in his living room or wherever he was passed out, while these other three were basically outside in the elements. And being that it was quote unquote 30 degrees, that doesn't take into account what the wind was doing. So that temperature might have been much, much lower.
Willis has reportedly moved out of the rental home and, according to his parents, checked himself into rehab for substance abuse.
I mean, it's obvious, that he was a drug user. They need to do some sort of toxicology on him as well. I'm sure they.
Yeah, that's what I don't know if they have or not done a tox on Jordan.
Already have, and likely we'll do a hair analysis because
everything we were just talking about. I don't know if they would need warrants, right? They can't just pull him in out of rehab unless they had maybe probable cause and a warrant.
The drugs will stay longer in your hair versus in your blood or in your bodily fluids, and most importantly, you sit him down and say, okay, where'd you get the drugs? Did you give it? And even more importantly, did you give it to him? Because if he gave it to him, then he's going to be culpable for their deaths.
Really?
Say, okay, where'd you get the drugs? Did you give it? And even more importantly, did you give it to him? Because if he gave it to him, then he's going to be culpable for their deaths.
According to the Missouri Department of Health and Senior Services, drug overdoses are the #1 leading cause of death in adults ages 18 to 44 in the state of Missouri. 70% of those overdoses come from opioids like fentanyl. If investigators determine Willis did distribute these deadly drugs, he could face serious prison time. What would it take for charges to be filed in this case?
If he gave them the cocaine under federal law, he's basically it's strict liability. He's liable for any harm that occurred to them. So generally speaking, it's a 15-year mandatory minimum in the federal system. And here in Riverside County, where I'm at, the DA is starting to charge people who are responsible for fentanyl overdoses with manslaughter with some add-ons. So the criminal justice system in the United States is finally catching up to this fentanyl overdose problem and starting to hold people accountable who give the drugs unknowingly, even if it's unknowingly to these people. If the guy that didn't know there was fentanyl in there, didn't have any intent. Obviously, it doesn't appear that he wanted to kill his friends. But under federal law, it doesn't matter. He gave him something, a drug, an illegal drug that harmed them, then he's responsible.
How will investigators track down who is the source of these drugs?
The more phones. So they're going to question him. He may say that the decedent number 2 is the one who actually passed the drugs out to everybody. They're going to get that gentleman's phone. They're going to, in the words of a criminal investigator, rip it. Download the what's going on in that phone. Look at those text messages. And then it's been my experience that drug dealers, especially if they're not very sophisticated and they're basically at the user level, they're going to put some text messages or something in there that indicate that they're the ones that gave them the drugs.
So what would it take to track down whoever distributed these drugs?
Well, generally speaking, this is what a forensic pathologist would kind of come in and talk to. But basically, the toxicology report is only half the story. You also, generally speaking, you have to actually do the autopsy and determine what the lungs look like, because when you do overdose on fentanyl, your lungs will fill up with fluid, and essentially you're going to you suffocate along with.
Wow, I didn't know that. Interesting.
A lot of other things.
That's messed up. Wow.
Body,
so there is ways to tell.
Organs are shutting down and all of other things. And so a forensic pathologist would be able, with the toxicology report, look at the internal organs and show that there's indicia of a drug overdose.
Still, the case leaves behind many unanswered questions, like why Clayton McGeeney's fiance broke into the rental home multiple days after she last spoke with him. If she tracked his phone to the location, why didn't she find him earlier? Schmidt says there could be an easy explainer for this one.
Well, I think she felt there was some foul play afoot, so to speak, and she was obviously freaking out. She also probably was reacting to her fiance's background or his behaviors in the past. So, based upon maybe the people he hangs around with, his pattern of life, his party habits.
But what's more difficult?
I don't know if necessarily it could be, but I don't know. I know some people, they have my location, bro, and I'm missing, and my car's right outside the house. And I mean, I don't know. Mama's coming over there, girlfriend's coming. A couple of people coming over there. I should be like, oh well, I don't know. We'll just wait and see. I don't know. I think most people probably, if they knew their family member or whatever, they had the location, they see the car still out there, they hadn't heard from them like in days, a day or two. Yeah, we're gonna come knocking on that shit. It's called a belly band or something like that. Yeah. But yeah, basically I got to touch on everything I wanted to this morning/afternoon. Mimi Moody, thank you for the super chats. It says be kind and respectful with our love mods. Sandy, thank you for the 21 months. Holy moly. Thank you for resubscribing. Hi Mel, great job. Check your DMs. I will after this. Phoenix Rising, thank you for the 3 months. You can absolutely be sued if someone gets injured on your property or your business, especially if it's through negligence. GG LLC, thank you for the 10 months. Sled. Daisy 73, thank you for the 12 months. Hey Mel, enjoying your coverage of this case. Thanks. And SW4x4, thank you for the 11 months. As redheads are more tolerant to any medication. Is that a thing? I didn't know that. Random player, thank you for the membership. Subscribers, I'm gonna be putting a PSA out. So again, we'll be back on Monday for it's gonna be really, really interesting for the verdict of Jennifer Crumley. I think I'm gonna post 2 short videos on the second channel today. Make sure you check the second channel. Subscribe, IckandMel _CC. Tomorrow I want to do a members video. I'm thinking in the afternoon or evening. I'm not exactly sure yet. What I'll do is I'll schedule it ahead of time to give people like a head notice. I'll try to do it in the morning to schedule it for the afternoon or evening, just to give like a heads up. And I guess that's it, man. Be safe. Thank you guys for joining me. I want to try to chill and like enjoy the weekend a little bit too, because it's going to be a busy month, I think. After the Jennifer Crumley thing, then we have Adam Montgomery. So we've got a busy month trying to fit in stories while doing the trial. All right. Love you guys. Adios. At that point, we become the FBI. Take care, man. Have a good weekend. Bye.